ano ba?
To welcome all of you this afternoon at the Ayala Museum for the book launch of Mindoro, The Stepping Stone. Before we start the program, may I invite everybody to please stand for the Philippine National Anthem. Again, welcome to the book launch of Mindoro, The Stepping Stone, the 21st of June 2016, here at the Ayala Museum, Function 2. Before, again, I'd like to welcome all our special guests, friends, distinguished individuals, historians, students, and lovers of World War II Philippine history, supporters, donors, friends, and clients also of Philippine Veterans Bank. Welcome. May I introduce some of the important or the people who should be recognized this afternoon. First of all, we have the ambassador of the Israeli Embassy, Ambassador Effie Ben Matitiao. I hope I pronounced that right. And then we also have the U.S. Embassy Cultural Attaché, Ms. Christine Miller. From the Philippine Veterans Affairs Office, the Administrator, Lieutenant General Ernesto Carolina. This person I'd like to recognize as well, although he may not probably hear us. The only World War II living veteran in our midst, Veteran Procolo Mojica of the Hunters ROTC. Of course, the President and the COO of Philippine Veterans Bank, Mr. Nonilo Cruz. And one of the renowned World War II historians, Dr. Rico Jose, is also with us. There are other historians here as well, and you'd probably like to meet them. So let's move on with our program. To welcome all of us formally, may a warm round of applause to our host, the President of Ayala Foundation, Colonel Ruel D. Moran.
Good afternoon. I would just like to again spare you all the litany of the prestigious names that has just been mentioned. But really, on behalf of Ayala Foundation, I would like to welcome all of you, our dear friends and partners. I also want to put in context, because my title, it might surprise some people here, even in my office. I do have the rank of a colonel, being the battalion commander of the 503rd Water Battalion of the Philippine Army. So I do still carry the rank, so it's not a costume party that I attend when you see me wearing that uniform. It is really a call of duty. So fortunately, we're spared of natural and man-made disasters. That's why we are not mobilizing, and hopefully we will have the most minimum amount of mobilization. But for this afternoon, setting that aside, this is really a gathering of honoring more than both the living and those who have moved on, warriors of our independence. And the fight for our independence is an ongoing journey for each and every one of us. For obviously, each day, we are given the option, the choice to make a difference, to transform and develop the opportunity for others, other people at that. But this is more significant because this afternoon, I myself tend to realize that I'm so inadequate because the person that we ought to emulate and even recognize this afternoon, I think it would be an understatement if I would say even rose above his present situation and handicap at that. I see that he is more normal than I myself, for he saw no impediment to move on and share a very critical portion of our history. For this afternoon, more than anything, I would like to recognize, of course, the author of this book, Mindoro, The Stepping Stone. When I looked at it and I read through the book, I said it should be not a stepping stone, but a solid foundation. Because from this story, you would see and relieve the valor, the gallantry of a lot of our unsung heroes. And believe you me, there are a lot of heroes all around us. Just look at the people beside you. You are your own heroes in your respective roles. Again, without much further ado, this is further significant because when I saw, and my friend here, Mr. Guillermo, when he approached me, he left me with no other choice. He is so good in selling the proposal that when he showed me it's Mindoro, he knew my soft spot. Because Mindoro, as a province, just for your information, a portion in Mindoro, in Talipanan, is an adopted community of Ayala Foundation. Through the initiatives of no less than both Don Jaime and Don Ebezo of Ayala. Way below what's happening, these Iraya Mangyan people have been looked at and have been given the opportunity to transform their lives. Alleviation, but keeping their cultural heritage. We make sure that they keep their identity, but at the same time, they are blessed with the opportunities that's happening all over the world. So having these two ingredients on our plate, as I told Lucky, you're not only lucky, you work this team. That's why I said, okay, I will provide the venue and all the other support that I could possibly extend to you. But again, I would like to amplify because the person who made this really possible is no less than the author, Rodolfo Aceves. The guy, the man, is really worth emulating, as I've said, and the book will not only make a justification for what he did, but really a manifestation that we, as individuals and more so as a group, can truly provide a transformation for anything and everything that we would put our focus on. So ladies and gentlemen, again, allow me to welcome you for this afternoon gathering of full support, not only for this initiative, but for all our opportunities that we will be coming into in these coming days. So, mabuhay at magandang hapon sa inyong lahat.
Historian, in fact, if he's one of the 3 guys I know that whenever there are World War II documentaries on the Philippines, he's probably one of the go-to guys when it comes to references. And this guy just flew in from Japan last night. Is that sleeping with the enemy? No, naman. But it's just a joke, it's a joke. Anyway, despite this busy schedule, he managed to join us this afternoon. May I call on Dr. Ricardo or Rico Jose from the University of the Philippines, Department of History.
Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it's true, I flew in from Tokyo last night. At this point, 24 hours ago, I was still in the air. But when Lucky invited me to this event, I immediately put it in my calendar. Lucky was worried that I might not be able to make it, but I assured him I'll be here this afternoon. He asked me to talk about Mindoro and give it a little bit of a perspective. And when we think of World War II in the Philippines, we think of Bataan, we think of Corregidor, sometimes we think of Besang Pass, Leyte. Mindoro is almost always a second fiddle thing. It's something that not too many of us know. But when you look more closely at Mindoro, Mindoro was strategic in more ways than one. When one looks at the Japanese invasion, Mindoro was important in the defense of Bataan and Corregidor because ships bringing rice, food from the Visayas and other materials stopped in Mindoro or even started from Mindoro and went to Bataan and Corregidor bringing these very important materials. In fact, it was so important to the USAFE that the Japanese realized they had to take Mindoro earlier than they had planned. And so the invasion of Mindoro takes place in February of 1942. Remember, Bataan fell in April. So this was an attempt to cut off the supply lines to Bataan and Corregidor. As long as Mindoro was still there, ships would be able to travel to Bataan and Corregidor and bring much needed supplies. With the capture of Mindoro by the Japanese, that cut off that particular avenue of supplies. And that in a sense hastened the collapse of Bataan and Corregidor because no longer could food and medicine and other important materials get to that beleaguered peninsula. The second point about Mindoro was during the liberation proper. Now, during the liberation proper, we know that the Americans landed in Leyte in October of 1944. Arthur did come in. But those of us from here know that October is not exactly the best time to conduct military operations. In fact, Yolanda hit in October. It is a typhoon season. And so the air bases that should have been used to be able to control the air over central Philippines, the bases couldn't be used because they were flood prone. Rains poured in. The fighting in Leyte was basically a mud slugging event. Soldiers remember the mud. So the airfields in Leyte were not that useful after all. And MacArthur had to look for another place which was drier, more solid, and closer to Luzon, and that was Mindoro. So we find Mindoro important in both the beginning of the war and towards the end of the war. Because with the capture of Mindoro, that provided now the real stepping stone, or perhaps more accurately as the foundation for the invasion of Luzon. When one looks at the middle part of the war also, Mindoro is important again because it was the hotbed of guerrilla operations. There were unfortunately rival guerrilla groups there, and so that tended to diminish the powers of the guerrillas there, but there was a strong guerrilla resistance movement that took place in Mindoro. And Mindoro again was strategic because Mindoro overlooked the Japanese supply lines by sea that entered Manila Bay. The northern part of Mindoro, in fact, would become very strategic, and MacArthur, realizing this, would send in missions from Mindanao, from Australia, to watch the Japanese ships entering Manila Bay. Because from northern Mindoro, you can actually see the mouth of Manila Bay, you can see the ships coming in, and that was very strategically important to MacArthur. That was reported to the US Navy, they sent submarines, and they cut the Japanese supply lines there. So the guerrilla operations were very significant in Mindoro as well. So one finds Mindoro very important during the war, both in the beginning, middle, and the end of the war. And the one thing about this is it hardly enters our basic history books. We do hear of Leyte, we do hear of Bataan, but Mindoro is almost always forgotten. And that's why this book, I knew the author by email. I never met him personally. I hope I will meet him here. He struck me as being very dedicated to the history of the war, but it was part of the 4th Military District. It sent soldiers to Bataan, so it did fight as well. And that was not documented particularly well. And so when I first read the articles of Mr. Aceves, I was very, very interested. We were in contact for a while by email, and somehow it stopped for a while. And I knew he was writing. I encouraged him to write, and I know that he had one, I think an uncle or a relative who was in Bataan and whose name was in the Capas Prisoner of War Camp Memorial. And he wanted very, very much to go there. And he was taken there several years ago and found the name of that relative, and that was a very high point in his life. And of course, one thing about him was that he has been in bed for 27 years. He suffered an accident, and he's been writing all of this, doing all those interviews from his bed. And that brings us to shame because all of us are more normal. We walk around, and yet this guy who has been in bed for 27 years was able to document, to interview, to write, and publish his book from his own bed. That means he is a hero by himself, and I think I wrote a very brief account about this. He was writing about heroes, but he was a hero himself. And therefore we have heroism being written by a hero, and I hope this is an example that all of us will be inspired by, and that we should realize how strong we are as a people. Thank you very much, and good afternoon.
Got in touch with Lucky, and as a result, the guy read the manuscript, right? Already had the manuscript already, and Lucky was good enough to help him get the book published. And today we will be presenting this book. But before I call that, I'd like to call on our President and CEO of Philippine Veterans Bank, a bank owned by World War II veterans and their families, to say a few words before the presentation of the book. Mr. Nonilo Cruz.
Thank you, Mike. Distinguished guests, colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Our first two speakers spoke confidently about events in World War II. I don't share that confidence here. Let me tell you why. Growing up, my parents did tell me stories about how life was very difficult during World War II. Growing up, we also realized that the passion of my parents in recollecting war stories was important for them. So on special occasions, I and my brothers would try to give our father with war stories, books. Ironically, the books that we only see in the bookstores then were mostly about the war in Europe, because these were highly publicized at that time. And it so went that we were not able to really recall the events of World War II in the Philippines. And most of my professional life, I must admit, and the bank understands this, I've had a foreign boss, a Western boss, all for 30 years. So even my family would complain that I'm more Western than Filipino. I've worked for the Australian bank for about 18 years, so I know more about the Australian economy and the products than what we have in the Philippines. And so in early 2013, I decided to retire and try to enjoy life. Unfortunately, or fortunately, our chairman, Roberto De Ocampo, asked if I wanted to join his bank, and he was teasing me that I was too young to retire. He said, Chairman, I'd like to retire when I can still play golf. And we said, well, you're still too young, you can still play golf and work at the same time. So I joined Philippine Veterans Bank. And I must admit, joining the bank was a culture shock for myself. Number one, there are Western practices that are not recognized and welcomed in the Asian culture. The other one was a eye-opener. I was invited, I joined in November of that year, and 2 weeks after I was asked to attend what we call the Supreme Council meeting of the Veterans Foundation of the Philippines. And we have World War II veterans there. Some of them sing, dance, poems, I hear stories. which made me realize that there was a gap in the education of children in regard to what happened, the events that happened during the World War II, the heroes of World War II. And when I was attending that dinner, I was silenced by the fact that I was actually looking at war heroes that nobody knows. Number one, nobody cares about. Number two. So in my present role, asking forgiveness for having worked for Western bosses for about 35 years, we dedicated Philippine Veterans Bank objective of trying to look after our shareholders. Our shareholders are actually the veterans of World War II. And we said we should come out with projects and business plans that would look after the veterans of World War II. So the first thing that we did was to extend pension loans. And you know, the veterans of World War II are aged in the upper bracket. And most of the financing extended in the market only extend financing to pensioners of up to, I think, about 70 years old. Right? And the veterans of World War II are over that. And these are the people that needs the help of the public. And the Republic Act that created Veterans Bank clearly stated that we should look after the veterans of World War II. Even 20% of our revenues annually are allocated to the veterans of World War II. So Philippine Veterans Bank came out with a project and a program that essentially allowed us to extend financing, pension loans, this is a little plug, of up to 200,000 to veterans of World War II aged up to age 99. And when we went to the market and explained this, you could see the reception of the veterans that finally somebody was looking after their needs. Right? So when Veterans Bank now tries to extend financial aid for medication and other needs, there now comes a requirement, a need for us to educate the younger generation. Something I am guilty of. I'm not able to narrate to my daughter the events of World War II. Martial law, yes, but World War II, no, I'm not able to. So the other project that the bank undertakes is to help historians document the stories of the war veterans. And there are so many around us. So with this, I extend an invite to other historians. We'll extend the financial assistance, medical needs of our war veterans. Please approach them and let's try to document all their stories, because these are all important stories that can teach us special lessons in trying to cope with the challenges that we now face in the country. We have internal challenges, we also have external challenges. So with that, Mike, Lucky, we'd like to present the book. Mindoro.
I'd like to call on Mr. to symbolically accept the book to be given.
So let this be another book that would help educate our children, and even myself. I will be reading this book pretty soon.
Second man of the hour, Lucky Guillermo, to introduce the renowned author of this particular book.
I will be speaking in the head of the former president. He was caught in traffic. Excuse me. He found my name and that of Mike Villarreal from the December 15th editorial of the Philippine Daily Inquirer, where we encourage sons and daughters of war veterans to write stories about their lolos, lolas, fathers, about the war. After triples to mine, Rod Aceves decided to read again the Inquirer page, and finally he got me, which I personally answered an unregistered number and asked him if he had a manuscript. He said yes. So in 1 week's time, I received a pouch from San Jose Mindoro. So that's a book. With this almost instantaneous publication, we own from a group of wonderful people who believe in our advocacy, Bring the Roadshow to Ring. The proceeds of this project will start up a fund for Rod Aceves and for the benefit of students to write stories about the last war. I'd like to say thank you, Colonel Ruel Marano of Ayala Foundation and Attorney Solomon Hermosura of Ayala Corporation, who gave their immediate support. Chairman Bobby De Ocampo of Veterans Fund for the encouragement to produce more books and documentary films. To Hedy de Tordesillas of Morning Star Montessori School, defrayed half of the printing cost. Peter Parsons, my partner, Des and Mario Benipayo also chipped in for the printing. Jess Crisologo, he's not here, of Cover and Pages, stood by for the quality printing. Cecil Tordesillas, brother of Hedy, who accompanied our young filmmakers, Bunny and Mai, for the location shoot in Mindoro, and documented that what you are about to see. Just a brief one. Jackie Rodriguez of Infinity Towers provided hotel rooms for the Aceves party while in Makati for the launch. Ayala was ready to send a chopper to airlift Aceves, but he adamantly refused, that he thinks he might die out there. Thus the mayor of Sablayan, Mindoro, Mayor Edgar Llanos, Mayor an ambulance that started from San Jose Mindoro, that's Occidental, go to Oriental Calapan, and then Boro to Batangas, Laguna, and then to Makati. Then return home on Thursday. He was accompanied by an able Doctora Grace Isabel Guido. It's really a long ride to fame for Rod Aceves, but I tell you, this one is certainly an amazing human being. On July 23 this year, next month I should say, we will be staging a world tour of this book and a premiere of our multi-award winning documentary film, Unsurrendered 2. The Hunters Are OTC Guerrillas at the MacArthur Memorial in Norfolk, Virginia. You may want to advise your friends, relatives, and compatriots to join us at the MacArthur Memorial. Again, Ruel, thanks, and Mon for their line tickets. And Manny Hermosa, Manny, we will await your pocket money. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to present, she was caught in a traffic, but he's here. Hang on, please.
Duty ako noon sa NBI. Masama na ang panahon noon, may bagyo. Basang-basa na noon. Yun yung pag-akyat ko sa sagdanan. Gumanon ako. Tumama ang kuwang ko sa angular. Pero ganyan sa labi, kaya sabi ko sa mga guard, pahinga muna ako doon sa bench. Mga 10 minutes, 15 minutes. 30 minutes ang ako. Hindi na ako makakuha. Dinala ko sa Makati Med. Ayun. Fracture yung aking spine. Sabi ng doktor, in all probability, permanent paralysis. So, wala akong magawa kundi mag-retire. Umuwi ako dito. It took me less than 2 years natanggapin. Kasi ako, Lord, may kapilyuhan ako pero hindi ako masamang tao. Yung laging question ko, ba't ako? I was 1 semester away to finish my law course. Nung inaayos ko yung retirement ko, simula, tubigas lahat ito. Ay right-handed ako, hindi ako makasulat. Ang takasulat ko yung electrician, mas pangit din. Nanghiram ako ng portable typewriter. Magsulat kaya ako. Yakap-yakap ko pa yun. Ganyan-ganyan, ang hirap pag may koreksyon. Yun, sinunod-sunod ko na. Lahat ng submission ko, lumalabas. Sina-challenge ako ng kaibigan. Para sa free press. Respected yan at feared. Pag lumabas ka dyan, writer ka. Padala ko sa free press, lumabas din. Para international naman, lumabas din. Ako writer din pala ako. Yun hanggang sa ito na ang nangyari. Ang laki ng baryo ito. Ito lahat asphalt. Ang kapal bago ka makahukay. Ang batala namin is stilmatic. Ang aming bakod is stilmatic. At ang dami kong nahuhukay na bala doon sa lupa ng lola ko. Kako hindi lang ganitong Mindoro eh. Ayun hanggang sa nag-research ako. Mga kaibigan ng tatay ko nung bumalik ng Bataan, pinupuntahan ko. Nangihiram ako ng pick-up. Nasa likod ako ng pick-up, nakapayo, ballpen, notebook. Nahanap ko kung saan ko talaga mapupunta. Ni-interview ko. Nakikita ko na yung importansya ng Mindoro. Kasi doon pa lang daw sa Campo Donel, ang sabi doon, huwag sasabihin na taga Mindoro kayo. Galitan ako sa Mindoro. Hindi nire-release pag taga Mindoro. Kasi para ang tibay ng intelligence ng resistance dito. Yan ang nag-inspire sa akin to do my research. I-trace yung matatanda na yan to get their pictures, to get the records para sabihin ito ang Mindoro. It took me more than 10 years to finish the book. Ang sabi doon sa letter ni Mrs. MacArthur, Mindoro became the key that unlocked the liberation of the Philippines. Ayun. Sabi ni MacArthur, with Mindoro in my hands, only the island bastions of Okinawa and Ujima would stand between America and Japan. MacArthur's move in Mindoro was one of the boldest he made during the Pacific War. Yan ang reason kung bakit ako ilalagay ko ang Mindoro sa proper perspective para malaman ng lahat. I lament that many of the generations now do not know what happened in the past. Kaya yan ang purpose kung bakit inulat ko ang libro na yan, Mindoro, The Stepping Stone. Siguro ka ko, Lord, ito ang purpose mo. Siguro, Lord, pinitik mo ako para papakinabangan ka dyan. Ayun. Wholeheartedly tinanggap ko yung nangyari sa akin.
Rodolfo Main Aceves.
fitting end for this program, I'd like to invite to give us an inspirational message the former President of the Republic of the Philippines, Mr. Fidel V. Ramos.
Oh, picture muna, picture.
Ang exercises dyan, nagsipisi ako. Hanggang Bulalakaw, hanggang Kalapan. Around the island. Sige, kumihan na. Sige, very good. I am hopeful. This is yours. Akin ito, akin. Susuratan ko muna.
Lucky and for your kind introduction and for your kind reception. Oh, tapos na mo. But really, I came here for 3 reasons. First, Lucky Guillermo. Second, Rodolfo Main Aceves. Let's give him a big hand again. And third, because of Mindoro. I'm very familiar with the place. I've reconnoitered the whole island, Occidental and Oriental, Lubang Island. There's an island just off San Jose, Ilin Island. I've dived there. And we have done airborne operations on San Jose, coming from other airfields. The point is, I consider this piece of military history an astounding feat by a man who is a paraplegic, who deserves the highest medal available, just like the brave soldiers that were part of General MacArthur's landing force. I must also mention that I have some other interests in this book. Aside from these 2 characters, the island of Mindoro, but also the mention of the 503rd Parachute Regiment that landed on Corregidor. The commanding officer at that time, Colonel George Jones. But anyway, dear friends, in my capacity as an old fogey veteran of many wars, I consider this piece of, it's not an ordinary piece of literature, but of art, military history, and also a source of national pride on the part of Filipinos and Americans together, by Rodolfo Main Aceves, as one of the great achievements of a fellow Filipino. Let's give him a big hand again. Saludo kami sa iyo, kabayan. Thank you very much.
I think this is a fine way to end the program. At this point, we'd like to formally end this part of the program, and we invite our guests for some cocktails at the back. And I think this is a time for the media and some other guests on time to start.
I have a microphone here, so Rod can use it answering your questions. Marcel of Expat will give the first question.
Hello. Good afternoon. I'm Marcel from Expat. Sir, I would just like to ask, how does it feel now that you have a book published and launched right now?
How do I feel the time
Yes, and it's finally published.
happy, and I can say that the book is wow from cover to cover.
Yes.
That's
Thank you very much.
ABS-CBN.
Sir, I wanted to ask, Julian from ANC, I wanted to ask how difficult is it to validate po the sources of information na gather nyo throughout the 10 years that you were writing?
most of the persons I interviewed were still alive. The characters I wrote there, the former guerrillas, the ex-batalers, they were still alive. So that is first person now.
Did you have to rely po, aside from personal accounts, were there other sources po that you have to rely on, like news clippings, reports from other witnesses?
Yes, sir. Yes. From other books, from other history books,
I have a question. When Mrs. Jean MacArthur wrote you, how did you receive it and how did you feel?
I never expected a letter from Mrs. Jean MacArthur. Actually, how did I get in touch with Mrs. MacArthur? I have a friend, Stephen McDonald, a policeman from New York. He was my friend. By mail, there was no internet access yet then. That was mid-1950s. By mail, I exchanged letters with Stephen and his wife, Patty Ann, who later on became mayor of Melbourne, New York. I happened to mention to my friend Stephen and Patty Ann that I wanted to write a history of Mindoro during the 50th anniversary celebration of the Mindoro liberation by the American forces. When the next mail arrived from Stephen, I was surprised that there was already included in his letter to me a personal letter from Mrs. Jean MacArthur. And Stephen told me that the MacArthurs are close family friends of the family of the MacDonalds. So therefore, that was how I came in contact with Mrs. MacArthur. I know in my research that Mrs. Jean MacArthur was with the general husband in the preparation war, during the war, and after the war. That was why when Mrs. MacArthur wrote in his letter, in her letter, that Mindoro became the key that unlocked the revelation of the Philippines, I have reason to believe that she was always in the side of her husband.
Dr. Mr. Cypress take those on their own. Meantime, we invite everyone.
This is my own book, huh? I am giving it to you because you are a better author than most of us. Pero ito, very current ito. Andyan yung mga mamasa pa no, yung mga namatay, ha? And then this one is a collection of articles I'm writing every Sunday in the Philippines. Pati yung Prisoner of War Shrine Bigama. Ako nagtayo noon, 1997, hindi 2005. Tapos na. And then, yung mga sinabi kong pangalan, Simeon Valdez, just like your relative, andun sa shrine, nasa mga pangalan. General yung general name, Sakot. Is your uncle? Ha? Tako was my staff. Tiga Pangasinan yan, tiga Balungaw. Take care of him. He was there. He went there. Yeah, I know. I saw it. I saw it. And I'll bring him. You put him on your throne. Oo, kaya yun. Buha ka na mas malang naman. Okay? Takot mag-helicopter eh. Hindi, walang takot yan. Saka pag nakarating ka sa Camp Donel, maglalakad na tayo. Okay? Don't worry. Kaya mo yan. 8.5 kilometers. Sama kayo? Sama ka. Ito yung history ng Kapas. Yan kami lahat. Alright. Salamat sir, salamat. Okay. Good luck to you sir. Exciting na.
Sa lahat na outsourcing. There is value in outsourcing, but certain function. Okay yung sa we bring this, at saka yung Unsurrender, a world premiere.
I am Rico Jose. We were in touch before. I'm very glad to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Can you sign my book in...
Okay lang po. Thank you so much.
Our inspiration. Thank you very much. Okay po, sige po. Historian kasi. Sunod na lang. Pwede na yung ilagay ng Dr. Jose Rizal.
Medyo lakasan mo kasi mahina yung pansin.
Sir, wanted to ask po, what do you think, bakit tingin niyo po important na ma-document po lahat ng historic events na nangyari ng World War II?
Simulat yan sa bulletin card.
During the liberation, sa yearly celebration natin, ang laging naman mention na yung Leyte, yung Manila, yan ang gaya. Nakakalimutan na ang vital role played by God. Kasi Leyte is 500 miles to Manila. Napakalayo. Mindoro is the stepping stone. Mindoro is only 300 miles later, 200 miles away. Dito naggawa ng base. Dito niya tinambak ang naval and aerial supply na. In that case, nung nakuha niya ito, madali na attack na ito. And he broke the forces of the Japanese.
Yan. Maraming salamat. Po-promote ko yung ano mo, i-libre mo. Promote ko. Maraming salamat.
May time pa siya sa...
Oo, kasi buli rin ako naman yung